Thank you for tuning into our podcast, Canal Days, What Life Was Like in the Industrial Connecticut River Valley of Massachusetts. I'm your host, Carrie, and joining us today is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Como. He personally offers and leads public and private tours, as well as presentations of historical sites within communities throughout the state of Massachusetts. Currently, this year, the communities he has chosen to focus on are Holyoke, Chicopee, South Hadley, and East Hampton, as well as Granby and Amherst as well. Tour spotlight on the local canals, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks, streets, and selected historical houses within each community. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the Leaping Well Brook, located in South Hadley, Massachusetts. So where does the Leaping Well Brook start and end?
Alright, this is a wonderful little brook. It starts towards the southern part of South Hadley. The most visible part of the brook is right on Route 202, Granby Road. And if you look from that position towards the south, the brook itself would start about 3/4 of a mile towards the south. It starts very small. I've been to that location, the headwaters of it. It starts in a large pitted area, very close to Bartlett Street of Granby, but not in Granby at all. It starts where the Solly dump and Granby dump are near each other, and so for that reason, it's really changed the brook over. Now, we're going to talk about how many times the brook's dammed up and where it is, and we're going to talk about the conservation area, which already has a separate page for itself and thus a separate podcast and video. And we're going to talk about the future of this brook. I hope it's a positive. Now, we talked about where it starts. Well, where does it end? Well, it keeps going along, and I would say the total length of this brook is about 2 miles, maybe up to 2.3 miles. It ends near Mosier Street, where it has for itself a place called the Leaping Well Brook Conservation Area. It goes across Mosier, it goes across College Street, and there it meets up with the Stony Brook, which is a much longer and larger brook, a brook that should be called a different name because it's so large. And it meets up there, and that's the end of the Leaping Well Brook. It doesn't really have any tributaries to it, which is unusual, I guess. But the area it goes through is kind of a large dingle area, and so you wouldn't expect too many tributaries coming into it.
And where is the brook dammed?
It's dammed 4 times over. The major dam by far is on Granby Road, and that dam has been there from the mid-1880s, and it holds back the reservoir water. This water was used for drinking water. It's one of, I believe, 4 places within South Hadley that are 4 reservoirs within South Hadley that were used for drinking water. 3 of those places still exist, and this is one of those. And it's dammed there with a large earthen dam. Its pipe or culvert is under Granby Road, and it reappears on the northern side of that road. And when it comes out, within only 100 yards, it meets up with a series of 3 small dams. This is near Pond Street. And if you want to see them, you have to go on private land at the end of Pond Street, and you'll be able to see them cascade over those 3 dams. Those dams are all safe. They're very small. They're probably used in the past as power locations with a shingle mill, a grist mill, so forth. But they're still in place. That's very, very peculiar to happen like that. And the state still, every 5 years, analyzes those small dams, and every 2 years analyzes the big dam because it's on a large highway, and you don't want that to ever cause problems.
And really quick, before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to sign up for any of his various tours or find out more information, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there you can find videos and podcasts of the stops along each of his tours, as well as photos and text of the historical sites throughout as well. And for other inquiries or private tours, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And his tours make for fun, educational outdoor activities for families and group parties. So getting back to our interview, tell us about the Leaping Well Brook Conservation Land.
Nice place, very new. Maybe 5 years ago it opened. It was in South Hadley, and this conservation area has a pathway within it that's a loop trail. I would say it's a little over a mile, and since it's a loop, no matter which way you go, you're going to come back to the correct place. It's a very soggy area, so do not go during April and October because you'll be in a lot of mud. But it's a nice little place, and I invite you to visit the page I've started up just for that conservation area. It's a wonderful little place, and you get to hear a lot of animals. It starts out on Mosier Street, and then it winds back towards the back of the Mosier School. It's used by the Mosier School as a nature study area, and of course you have all the normal things. Within it, you also have a couple of long bridges or places where it's very muddy, so they put in wooden structures so you can walk over the mud. It is somewhat popular within South Hadley, but most days you'll be the only one out there. I visited maybe 5 times now. You park off of Mosier Street, right at the beginning of that street, but then you walk around its left edge to get into the entrance of it. And just last year they put in some benches, and there's a lookout into one of the cutest areas within the conservation area itself.
And what might happen to the brook in the future?
Well, this conservation land shows you that Hadley's dedicated to making the brook nice and available to the public. Now, on its middle ranges and upper range, it has dams. So what might happen would be someday those dams might be taken out. And the reason why, they're not really doing anything anymore. Now, the reason why I don't think that will happen for the big one, because it is big, and also because it's a very beautiful area. And they've put a new, larger dirt road coming around its western banks. So that's one reason I don't think they're going to be taken out anytime soon. But it doesn't do much anymore. Now, the middle portion has those 3 small dams, which probably will come out someday, no big deal. And I'm hoping they continue to add area to conservation land going up so that people can walk the whole of the Leaping Wells Reservoir. The Leaping Well Brook. The part around the reservoir you can walk. The part around the conservation area you can walk. The middle portion you cannot walk. I've never walked it. It's hard to view from any given road. But I hope they can keep extending their public land upwards and build trails on it. That would be wonderful.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours and historical topics of your expertise. And we want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And you can check out a large selection of our other podcasts on his website, as well as on SoundCloud.com. And be sure to stay up to date with new podcasts and videos posted daily. Thank you for tuning in. Now you actually lead these tours and give these presentations yourself, is that correct?
Yes, and this is the newest conservation land in South Hadley.
And so today he will be teaching us about the Leaping Well Nature Trail. So, what is the trail system like in the Leaping Well Conservation?
Alright, there's a loop trail within this system, and it's pretty easy to get through. It starts on Mosier Street where their parking lot is. Now, the hardest part about it is see where the trailhead is. And if you're parked there, the trailhead is within the parking lot on the edge of Mosier Street towards the east, or towards, if you're looking towards the road, towards your right. And it's not marked off well there. But as once you get on the trail, it's fairly well marked off. And so the trail system's pretty cool. It's again, straight in and a loop around. And at times it's very wet, so I think there's some boardwalk for some of the time, but if you go in April and May, that's not going to work. It gets wet, so wet that you won't be able to get through the trail. But most of the trail, once you get in, is pretty cool looking, and I hope you enjoy it. It's incredible how you can get off a road and you can go into a very peaceful place very quickly. Now this exists, and I'll explain why it exists. The Leaping Well Brook is actually pretty long.
And so, what is the major reason that this Leaping Well nature conservation land exists?
All right. Now the Leaping Well starts out on the southern end of South Hadley, near the South Hadley landfill. It passes fairly quickly into a reservoir, the Leaping Well Reservoir, which is along Route 202. And then it goes under the highway, and then it hits three dams in a row on Pond Street. And they're very small dams, and then it goes down to along Pitchoff Avenue and curves over towards a crossing where Mosier Street is. Now it exists because South Hadley was willing to buy some of the parcels it needed to and change it into a nice little trail. It's great because it's right next to two of these schools, the middle school and the elementary school, and so students can go down there. And the trail now has on it boardwalks and some of it, but when you go past those boardwalks and go inwards, you realize this is an old farm in this section. So the back section was a farm. So South Hadley had bought some of the farmland from a family called the Tooth family, T-O-T-H. And they were able to make this nature trail. It's about 2/3 of a mile long. And it has a lot of terrain changes, which is really cool.
So quickly before we continue with the rest of the interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to find out more information or just to sign up for any of his various tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there he has both videos of the various stops along each tour and also past and present photos of the historical sites throughout as well. And if you're interested in setting up a private tour, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And they are perfect for fun, educational outdoor activities for the whole family or for your group parties, especially those special occasions and get-togethers. Also, they are good just for getting outdoors for the day. So, getting back to our interview, can you give us some of the formal details about the Leaping Well Conservation Land?
Yes, it's 21 acres in total, and the land borders the edge of the Mosier Elementary School, so it makes it look bigger. It also borders the Mickley Smith Middle School across the street with this arboretum. So the area seems bigger, and the nature trail itself also it might be officially about 2/3 of a mile long, but when you walk it, you realize it seems a lot longer because along the way you got so many changes of open meadows to a grove of trees into woodland and back towards the brook and so forth. You keep changing around, so it seems longer than it really is, and that's great because you really get into nature when it seems that you're staying out there a long time. You're probably absorbed into nature, and the only official parking lot is the one they put in off of Mosier Street, and it's big enough for about 10 cars, and you can use that to get off of that major street. And a good thing is you can use it during school hours because that inlet is not on school property.
Now, what can be done to improve this conservation land?
Okay, it was only made 5 years ago, so they'll think of improvements along the way, so it's a great start. Well, again, signs would help you understand the area, what the Leaping Well Brook is all about, where it's coming from in South Hadley. It has its origin and the ponds are in the south of Hadley. And then where does it go? Well, once it crosses Mosier Street and then crosses Newton Street, it meets up very quickly within about 100 yards with the Stony Brook. So if you explain that to people, that'd be great. Also explain the different life forms you're going to meet along the way, whether it's the insects, the birds, or the mammals. That would be great for kids, especially this area, because it's very close to those two schools. And when teachers bring their students out here, it'd be great to have signs around, help them understand what they're looking at, of course.
So, thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours. And we want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And again, you can check out a large selection of our other podcasts and much more at his website. Again, that's holyokecanaltour.org. And you can also email him directly for private tours